Hey everyone, this is Mike, and today I want to talk a bit about Monk as well as how I go about learning a new job or relearning a job that I haven't played in a while, which that is the case with Monk. Why I decided to learn it again, I'll talk about in just a minute. Let's first get the learning process out of the way in case that is the reason that you clicked on this video. So I got like 5 steps that I follow, I guess. Reading the tooltips, learning an opener, learning the first 2 minutes of a rotation, practicing on a dummy, and then taking it into actual content like a dungeon or a 24-man or something. So tooltips are a thing that I feel like not enough people read. I've made plenty of videos in the past where I get comments asking me about stuff that is explained in these skill tooltips, and it's not always something that is worded weirdly or a difficult to read tooltip, but sometimes something as simple as this skill has a positional from the back or the flank. This part I usually tend to get out of the way while I'm leveling a job though, or when a big balance change happens, and I don't often end up going back to reading my tooltips unless I forgot about something and I need to make sure that I was right. Learning an opener is something that is really easy to do if you make use of Stone Sky Sea. In Endwalker we have one at Palaka Stand. Just talk to this NPC and it will put you into a training area where you can then hit a dummy for 3 minutes. The reason why this area is so good is because it will reset your cooldowns each time you enter. So you can queue in, try your opener, go out, and then re-instance without having to wait 2 minutes for your cooldowns to come back. So it's really good if you're just trying to learn the opener. The Balance Discord is usually my go-to place to look for information in case I'm looking for an opener to learn or some other information that I'm not sure on if I'm right or not. So that's usually where I go to read up on some stuff, and then I take it to Stone Sky Sea to put it into practice. One small thing to keep in mind is that you do not take the level 90 synced dummy, because you might have a different skill speed when you're fighting that dummy as your stats are synced down, but any of the other ones is fine. After I got the opener down, I tried to go for a 2-minute rotation. The reason why 2 minutes is because inside Stone Sky Sea, you're limited to a 3-minute fight. And most jobs in the game have a 2-minute rotation. So that's why I like to practice the first 2 minutes to kind of get into the swing of things. But 2 minutes isn't really enough to get a good grasp of everything. And some jobs will also slightly change once you go past these 2 minutes. Gunbreaker is probably the best example of this, because they don't really have a looping rotation, and in Monk's case, after the first 2 minutes, your looping rotation also changes slightly, and that is because your 2-minute burst window is slightly different from your actual opener, and that will change one thing in the rotation later down the line, but if you only practice the first 2 minutes, then you would never know about that. So that's why going to a normal striking dummy is going to be better in the long run. Downside here is that you can't reset your cooldowns when you mess up and you want to try again, but that's why you should practice in Stone Sky Sea first and then take it to a normal dummy later. For a dummy rotation, I like to aim for 6.5 minutes. The reason why 6 is because that is where the re-opener is going to be. I know that this isn't as relevant now as it was before Endwalker, but it's still a good duration to aim for when practicing a rotation, especially if you want to incorporate the usage of tinctures, because the 6-minute mark is where you would use your second tincture. And then once I'm comfortable on the job, that's when I'll take it into some actual content. So that's my learning process. Let's then get back to why I decided to relearn Monk again. So in our most recent patch, Samurai got a fairly small change that had a pretty big impact to the feeling of the job for me. Already made a video on it when it happened, so I'm not going to go into it again, but long story short, I just wasn't enjoying it as much as I used to. And Monk was one of the jobs that I was most excited for pre-Endwalker's release. Always enjoyed playing the job back in the day, and Masterful Blitz seemed to add some extra depth to the job that I thought that it could use. Had a good time leveling it to 90, but because Samurai was also still a lot of fun to play, I kinda stuck with that. I was already comfortable on the job, and Monk was kind of hurting my brain back then as well. So while I did learn the basics, I never ended up learning the job properly. And now with Samurai being a bit less enjoyable to me to play, I thought this was the best time to put in some effort to properly learn how to play Monk. And I'm glad that I did, because the job is so much fun to play. While I was a bit sad about the fact that we lost 4 positionals initially, they essentially changed the focus of Monk. Back in the day, Monk had a very straightforward rotation, and what made it fun was keeping track of your positionals. Now they decided to make the rotation much more interesting and then decided to cut back on the positionals. During the downtime, I do still sometimes miss having to do all 6, but during the burst windows, I'm very glad that I don't have to do that on top of all of the Masterful Blitz stuff that's going on, because I fear that Monk would then become too hard to play for the average player. So I think this is a good compromise. Still end up going back for some positionals sometimes that aren't really there anymore, but that's just out of habit. And I don't really mind it anymore that we ended up losing them. The trade-off for a more interesting rotation was worth it in my opinion. And who knows, maybe I'll look back on the old samurai like this as well a few months from now, but only time will tell. For now, I'm going to be putting my time into getting better at Monk, because while I do understand how the rotation works now, it doesn't mean that I'm not making any mistakes or sometimes get things mixed up. But that's why you practice. And when I was hitting the dummy earlier and I was able to execute the rotation smoothly, it felt really good. And I want to get to that point as well when I do some actual content. So that's the reason behind why I decided to get back to learning how to play Monk, and also how I go about learning a new job. Let me know what you do when you're trying to learn something new and how you go about it. And with that, I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my Patreons for their support, and I'll see you in the next one.